So now that we're establishing some baselines here. So now that we have this idea of how they made giants both before and after the flood. It's not you don't need the fallen angels to be here every single time. The idea is that they copulated with women, which, Austin, that brings up a whole question that a lot of pastors and seminaries refuse to address, which is that angels have real bodies. So
But aren't they always presented as people, like almost every time?
Yeah, they are. I would even say, even in Ezekiel 1, 8, and 10, I think that it's a very poor translation that turns them into these big spheres with eyes that goes around them. I think I did a whole video on this about looking into the Hebrew and the Greek, as far as specifically how that's just a bad translation, and they're actually a part of the Ophanim class of angels, which actually has a dual meaning. The word ophan is the word for wheel in Hebrew, and so that's where I think the mistake comes in, that people think that, oh, they must be shaped like a wheel and not actual real person. You know what I mean? So there's multiple classes of angels. There's the Ophanim, the Seraphim, the Cherubim, and the Watchers. And so these Watchers were like the lowest class of angels that were sent down to the earth in order to help mankind govern themselves, because they become numerous. This is the full story that you get from Enoch and Jubilees. And like we read, some of them went off mission, right? And they got caught up finding some women attractive, but then it turned into a much bigger thing, which then they became a full-on assault against mankind. And so we're going to go over, I'm laying some groundwork. I'm going to go back to that story here in a few minutes and explain which one of the angels did not get sent to Tartarus and was still here after the flood and why it matters. But real quick, let's look at something called the Vajra, which is considered the most powerful weapon in ancient Babylon. So this is something that you see most readily spoken about, or most, I should say, there's no ambiguity of how this is mentioned in the Vedic texts from ancient India. And the Vajra was the weapon of Lord Indra. It was a powerful device that could not only destroy the enemy in the form of attacking flying machines, but it also had the ability to cause rain and was a symbol of fertility. So the Vajra itself is a thunder of 1,000 blades, or lightning. And it's forged from iron or gold mixed with bronze or stone. So it's actually a type of a weapon that they claimed had to do with lightning and could control or take the form of a flying machine to attack. That's crazy, right? Because we're talking 4,000 years ago Vedic texts written in Sanskrit. So they still have, trinkets of the Vajra today that you can find if you go to, Nepal, or if you go to China, or if you go to Japan, different parts of Asia. They still have the Vajra everywhere in different forms. It has a different look it takes on, depending on the artistic style. Here on the right-hand side, you have Lord Indra, which is one of the Indian gods, who is considered the god of war. And he has a specific style of Vajra that he called the Vajra staff. Here's a modern artistic painting of Lord Indra holding a special Vajra, which is conducting the lightning, because he was considered a god of war who controlled lightning. Here is another modern depiction from a Bollywood movie of Lord Indra holding the Vajra in his hand as he's attacking, with lightning coming down on him from heaven. So just to let you know, the Indians, there is no ambiguity in what the Indians believed. This particular quote-unquote little g god, who was a god of war, and he had a specific device that allowed him to somehow manipulate lightning, use it for some sort of remote control over a machine, as well as it could affect the weather. Here's an ancient stela from Greece that is depicting Zeus, also holding a Vajra. So we go from India all the way over to the Middle East and to the Mediterranean to Greece. This is like a clay pot that they had an ancient painting that was preserved of Zeus holding a Vajra, which they called his lightning rod. Here's another one. Now this one's fascinating because it looks much more complicated than the other Vajras. Like I said, they took on different artistic forms. But this particular one that Zeus is holding on the far left of the screen, he's fighting some sort of, I think it was Typhon, this like snake-like god in ancient Greece that was like a chimera that Zeus was fighting in this story. They put this on this clay pot, and you can see it's not just like any normal. It's like it opened up a little bit. It's like part of it opened up, and it has a unique design to it because it had multiple designs. So this one, it's actually longer than in other pictures. So it's like extended in some way. So this is some sort of thing that they claimed helped him have his control, direct, and attack with lightning. So Lord Indra had a staff that was a Vajra. Neptune also has a staff that's of a Vajra, Roman god, who's the equivalent of like Zeus. And then Baal of the Canaanites also was considered the storm god of thunder and lightning, who also is depicted in busts with a Vajra in his hand. So now we're finding synchronicity between ancient India, Greece, and the Canaanites in Mesopotamia.
On LiiightHouse, got 2 flavors. I think today I'm going to go with this one. Here it's just not going to stop, so whatever. This one helps with restlessness, nervous disorders, asthma, digestion, high blood pressure, insomnia, pain, GI discomfort. I'm so excited. It is for inflammation, anxiety, high blood sugar. Actually, I'm going to do this one instead. Anxiety. You can get them off the website, LiiightHouse, and I'll also leave a link in my bio in case you want to try them out. Okay. They were also super kind enough to send me 100% raw Cheyenne honey. Okay. Disco bottle of tea. Let's let her simmer. So cute, because this one says our tree of life blend, and this one's our relaxing Sabbath rest blend. It's all godly. Prayer for healing for me, please, in my ear, and this bird to please be quiet. They were not playing. No joke, this is actually really good. I'm shocked, and I don't even like tea. This is literally blessed by Yeshua. Can I get an amen, sweet Pete? I pray. Time to get all warm and cozy and not have no anxiety. On LiiightHouse.
And Elon Musk has a Vajra replica on his nightstand. I just thought this was just funny to me. Because you know how we don't believe that Elon is legit getting all this money from SpaceX to run his stuff. But here he is with a public photo he released. He's got a little Vajra on the corner of his nightstand. So in Leviticus 26:17-20, Yahweh is explaining what happens if you're in covenant with him, but you decide you want to stop doing covenant behavior and you want to go live after the ways of Babylon or the ways of Canaan. Basically, you want to live in sin, right? You want to live in destructive ways, and how the creation will start acting towards you. So he says, I'll set my face against you so that you'll be defeated by your enemies. Those who hate you will rule over you. You will flee when no one pursues you. And after all this, you will not obey me. And if after all this you will not obey me, I will proceed to punish you sevenfold for your sins. I'll break down your stubborn pride and make your sky like iron and your land like bronze. That's famine. And your strength will be spent in vain. Your land will not yield its produce, and the trees of the land will not bear their fruit. Again, in the wisdom of Solomon, about 1,000 years later, for creation, serving you who made it, exerts itself to punish the unrighteous, and in kindness it relaxes on behalf of those who trust in you. Christ himself in Matthew chapter 8, 23-27. He says, when Jesus got into the boat, his disciples followed him. Suddenly a violent storm came upon the sea, so that the boat was engulfed by the waves, but Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him and said, Lord, save us, we're perishing. You have little faith, Jesus replied. Why are you so afraid? And then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and it was perfectly calm. The men were amazed and asked, what kind of man is this? Even the winds and the sea obey him. Well, this man was righteous. That's the point of Christ. He was without sin. He followed the ways of the Father perfectly. And therefore, the promise, or go back to Wisdom of Solomon real quick, the promise that's stated both in the covenant in Leviticus as well as succinctly stated in the Wisdom of Solomon is that the creation will relax itself on your behalf for those who are righteous, for those who trust in the Creator. That's what righteousness means, is you trust in the Creator because you walk in his ways. So Christ, of course, does that perfectly. This is why miracles flowed through him so easily. We also see James chapter 5, the same thing. He's talking about a righteous man and how the creation itself reacts. Elijah was a man just like us. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain in the land for 3.5 years. Again, he prayed, and the heavens gave rain, and the earth yielded its crops. So you can see this in 1 Kings chapters like 18 through 20. And then a future prophecy in the book of Revelation, chapter 11, about these two witnesses that show up. And it claims they have the power over the sky, over the weather. It says, I'll give power to my two witnesses. They shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth. That's 42 months, by the way. These are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of the mouth and devours their enemies. If any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These men, these two witnesses, have the power to shut heaven, that it does not rain in the days of their prophecy. And they have the power over waters to turn them to blood, to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. So this is a future prophecy that claims the type of prophets that we saw in the Old Testament, that like Moses and Elijah, people that could do these types of miracles and control the creation itself, that two guys will appear with that same type of authority and power again in the future and prophesy for 42 months leading up to the second coming of Christ. And if we won't be going into much depth about this tonight, but if you keep reading Revelation, the beast who comes up out of the pit from Revelation 9, the one that's referenced in Revelation 17, that beast ends up killing these two guys 3 days before the return of Christ. So this is where that means for 42 months he couldn't kill them. He had to put up with them controlling the weather. What do we know? Governments of the earth are heavily involved in weather manipulation programs. This is what Leviticus promised, that if you abandon the ways of the Creator, your enemies will rule over you, and there will be famine in the land, and your produce will not yield, because the enemies, the Empire of Babylon, has always used weather manipulation as a form of warfare, and they will always try to create famine so they can control people. So this is a common thing that happens throughout all of history and is cited all throughout the Bible.